Okay, so uh, welcome to this class, introduction to cybersecurity. So today we'll be going through these topics: fundamentals of cybersecurity, CIA triad, and malwares and their types. So fundamentals of security will mostly cover what is cybersecurity and why do we need it, and what are some of the important terminologies in cybersecurity that we'll be using uh, going forward. So this is completely a theoretical session, and there is not going to be any demo at least for today. And it, uh, we are already up to 6 minutes, and so we'll rush through these slides today. So at the end of session, we'll have a QA where you could post, or you could post your questions in the chat. I can look it up at the end of session. So cybersecurity, what is cybersecurity? Uh, I'm sure you could learn these definitions by yourself. So I'll just give an elaborate what is the what cybersecurity in practical world is. The basic understanding or uh, interpretation about cybersecurity is it mainly involves only hacking and or getting access to data that is unauthorized or present somewhere, but that is not it. Cybersecurity, it extends from all the layers in an OSI model. So if you have learned uh, everybody would have learned OSI layers in your engineering. So right from physical layer till the presentation layer, uh, s- uh, you need to be we need to secure each and every device or each and every network, each and every software, even the users uh, should be trained and have knowledge about security in order to prevent leakage of any information or data. So these how do we ensure cybersecurity is we'll be using the tools tools available. For example, you would have antivirus in your laptops and in your mobile phones. So that is a tool for cybersecurity, uh, other practices like when I have a server, and who should I should determine, or I should have to uh, determine who should access that server, or who can use it, who who could visit that server, and who could virtually use it but not physically access the server. These things comes under the practices of cybersecurity. So it is quite a vast domain for now. There are a lot of topics like internet security, system security, email security, your passwords, access and management security, where your passwords and stuff comes in. Uh, and now if the evolving one is the cloud security. These are a few to mention. So why cybersecurity is needed uh, is because you in everyday life, if we would have come across certain cybersecurity incidents earlier, but what are the primary motives for these for these cybersecurity incidents are listed here. There has been these cybersecurity incidents are what you would known as hacking, uh, might have happened or has increased in volume in the past decade, right after the technological boom, when everyone had got a cell phone in their hands, and there are a vast number of operating systems that has come to our come to the market, and uh, hence everyone stores information in their hands. Everyone has their personal information in their own hands, and they also save it in our cloud. uh, cloud we have the private cloud like Google Drive or a Dropbox. So these are all like examples of private cloud. We store informations or data or files, anything like that. So when the information comes publicly available, and there is a possibility for uh, others who to access it, hence the increase in the number of cybersecurity threats, and the severity of these threats is also increasing. For example, when you earlier when Yahoo Chat or uh, Internet Explorer or were the only browser in use, where there were simple techniques, there were no ransomware present. But right now we have evolved up to ransomware. Ransomware can close your entire laptop and delete all your data. It can crush your laptop into nothing. So that is the severity of the cyber attacks right now, and an increase in the cost of data breaches, and increase in laws and regulations of personal data. So what is the relation between cost to data breaches and the loss of regulation? Suppose if I am a user, like take for example a Google, and you are saving some information, some sensitive information in your Google Drive. If it leaks outside, and you are informed that you came to know that your information, your sensitive data or some files or PDFs has been stolen, you could sue the company for the same reasons. You can report it that I had saved it with the proper security that you have provided with me, but still this information has gone out. So the companies who has lost data has to provide compensation for you. And when if it is for one person, that is all right, but when it happens in large scales, a database will contain like thousands of users, maybe lakhs of users. In case of a bank site, or your if you will be you would have used Flipkart or any other e-commerce site. So these databases will have lots of information about a lot of users. If those information gets leaked, the uh, the website who owns those data, they will have to they are answerable to both the people whose information were stolen, as also to the government. So it involves billions of cost, and billions have been lost, and due to medium security breaches, not even high severity breaches, but for just menial level of breaches can cost you billions. We have a few case studies at the end of the slide. You can we can go through that later. And fear of loss of reputation in the sense where when take for example, there was an attack recently in Capital One Bank, I think in Canada. So when we don't we are not aware of what Capital One Bank is, but if they come to India with such a reputation, so Capital One Bank data has been compromised earlier. We won't be trusting their uh, entity. We won't even get involved. We won't even get to try to involve in with them. So in that way, the reputation of that company is at stake. So these are the reasons why cybersecurity is necessary. What we'll go through a few important terminologies. There are terminologies in cybersecurity is quite vast. It includes network security, internet security, and Microsoft OS, Linux OS, all these terminologies comes under these. Uh, but we will go through a few of the important terminologies alone for today. So a domain is nothing but a group of computers or any other network devices that are interconnected to and managed by a single authority. We'll be having an administrator or a domain controller server. So under that, we'll have the devices reporting. It could be a laptop running Microsoft OS, or it could be a desktop running Linux OS, or even it could be a mobile phone. Even your mobile phone connected through Wi-Fi can be reported under one domain and can be brought under that management. So virtual private networks. So virtual private VPNs you might have been using in your mobile phones itself. So what you might have an idea is about when I use on VPN, I can uh, mimic that I am browsing from a different location. But in actual, what VPN provides is it creates a private channel. Think of a tunnel in between the internet space. So there is you are connecting your mobile through Wi-Fi and accessing a government website. This is gone through. This traffic is going through a regular internet traffic. But when you connect to a VPN, it creates a tunnel in like a virtual tunnel inside the internet, so that the data going through that is encrypted and only you can decrypt at your end. So anyone, if they are sniffing the traffic in between, won't be able to see what you are browsing or what data is being transmitted in a VPN channel. It provides a secure internet channel. And IP address, it is the uh, in address or your identity to any device. There are two types of IP address: IPv4 and IPv6. So IPv6 is less common right now. IPv4 is uh, uh, addresses are assigned to any devices under a domain, using a lot of any dynamic protocols, or even by static addressing. So if there are 10 computers in a network, each computer will have a unique IP address. The same IP address won't be repeated for the other IP address, and using these IP address only, the packets will be routed from the internet. So firewall is a defensive technology or a network device placed between the user and the entry and the internet. So um, when a traffic or a packet comes from a website, say you are browsing flipkart.com, the packet will be coming in uh, through the internet, and it will reach your device. So in between the internet and the device, we will be keeping this firewall, uh, a network firewall. So it'll see if the traffic that is coming through is authentic, or if there are any unwanted ports. If it is a HTTP traffic, it should use only port number 80. If it is a HTTPS traffic, it should use only port 443. If there are any other packets, any other ports that are those packets are trying to access, then it will be stopped by the firewall. For example, the SSH port is 22, and if any traffic that is trying to access the port 22 of your laptop, it will be stopped by the firewall. Event is a starting or stopping of any service. So when you in your laptop, if you go to run command, You could try this right now. Give Control R. You will be seeing the run command window, and type the services.msc. Once you type that, you can see the list of services running running in your laptop. So when you stop or start a new service, so that is called an event. So the magnitude of event will be different in different context. So in case if I take a if I take a case of laptop, uh, shutting down the system and restarting the system is also called an event. Or stopping a service and starting a service, or starting an application, or and closing an application also comes under uh, event.
Sir, sorry to interrupt. Sir, can you just turn off the annotation? So you can clear all the drawings and then you can turn off the annotation, sir.
Uh, is this one right? I have I disabled it?
Yes, sir, you have disabled it, but you can just clear all the drawings too. So someone has scribbled in the screen.
So
So you can find it in the right side of the toolbar. Yes, sir, it's done. So in the security, make sure you have just disabled that.
okay,
Okay, sir, thank you.
yeah, thanks. So incident is multiple events that have a negative. Is it still okay? Multiple events that have a negative impact on a system. So for example, there is a server that is running a MS SQL database. So this database is necessary. This database is the only application running on that server, and there are multiple services that will be supporting the access of this database. So if I open open the database to view it, there will be multiple services, like at least 4 or 5 services running in the background. If one or more of these services get stopped, then that might crash my database itself. So one or more events contributing to a major negative impact is called an incident. A breach. So breach is when a hacker successfully hacks into the target. It could be a laptop, it could be a mobile phone, it could be a web application, or it could be a database, or for any type of gains. It could be financial, or to access the personal information, anything. So once he gets into that target or a victim a device or a network successfully, it's called a breach. So a threat is an it's an event or action that has the ability to compromise the system. It means uh, there is it has the potential to cause damage to a system. Uh, so if there is take for example, there is a hole in a wall, of your compound, or at your house. The Then the threat would be a rat coming in, or a snake coming in. So in this case, a rat and snake are the threats. Okay. Vulnerability is an important definition in cybersecurity. So, but it has a simple explanation. It just means a weakness or a loophole in a network. In a network, it could be when you have a network and a device. If you don't have a firewall, it is a vulnerability. So anyone can access your access. Anyone can by some means can reach your laptop or a device inside your network uh, through unauthorized means. So here, in absence of a firewall is a vulnerability. Suppose if you are using a older version of Windows, say Windows 98 or something, where there are a lot of loop vulnerabilities. I mean, it won't be properly updated. So that will have a lot of vulnerabilities that can allow any attacker to get access to your device. Uh, uh, so now exploit is anything. It could be an application or a script or even a tool that can be used to exploit these vulnerabilities. Exploiting means taking advantage of the vulnerability. So there is a loophole in my network, or my device is not properly patched. I did not install the updates properly in my system. There is a vulnerability, there is a loophole in my system. So using an exploit, I will take advantage of that vulnerability and get into your system. It's like putting a hook into a hole to grab something on the other side of that hole. You can imagine an exploit like that. A data theft. So a data theft is basically after a breach, when a hacker takes any information that he wanted, be it a document or be it transferring the money or any information from the database. So what are the top 5 common threats in cyber security space? So shows socially engineered Trojans. Social engineering, we'll be discussing about that in the next classes. I'll give you a hint. Social engineering is something we have all come across in everyday life. Like we would have seen cases where someone, a random person calls you and says that he is from a bank and asks you for your debit card or credit card number to just steal your money. That is called social engineering. It is luring people into making them think that you are the authorized person, and then asking for sensitive details to steal something. That is an example of social engineering. So socially engineered Trojan means we'll have to creating Trojans specifically for types of people, like sending you an email. Uh, Sorry, the third one, phishing, and phishing is also a type of socially engineered Trojan attack, where if you are interested in reading books, you might be interested in some new book by a specific author. I can send an email for you saying that you can buy this new book at a 50% discount or at a 75% discount. So if you click a link through that mail, I can get access to whatever device or your uh, or even your at least your browser. I would even if I get access to your browser, I can steal your cookies, I can steal your saved passwords, or even the session IDs. Using session IDs, I can uh, impersonate your personality itself. I can I can steal your identity and log in as yourself. That's the use of socially engineered Trojans. And phishing. Phishing is sending uh, uh, yeah, same falsified emails. You would have seen received mails from SBI in the mail, but the email address would be very different. So that is phishing. And unpatched software or application. Unpatched software means if you uh, every day we would have come across these software updates either for your mobile phones or your laptops for your Windows OS especially. You your Windows update will be popping up then and now, asking you to update these. So if you don't, these are all necessary patches that you have to apply to your laptops, because if you don't, it might pose as a security threat. Um, if you see a security patch update, it means there was a vulnerability present, and this security patch will fix that vulnerability. If you don't apply that security patch, the vulnerability will be still present, and there are chances that that vulnerability will be exploited and your device could be compromised. So that's the need for unpatched software or application. It's not only for Windows, even if you are using any softwares like Lightroom or MS Excel, uh, Adobe, you would have installed Adobe or any other softwares. So any software you should not be you should be running in the current version or N-1 version, just one version back. No, N-2 is not recommended since that could be a threat. Network traveling worms. Uh, network uh, uh, Network traveling worms are just like worms are a bit different from virus. We'll discuss that later. Here I will be talking about bots and botnet. So what are bots is, I imagine a domain, a collection of computers. I have gained access to one. I am a hacker and I have gained access to one of their computers. Now, I need to create an attack, but one computer from your network is not necessary. So there are 10 computers in your network, and I'll be trying to get control of all the 10 computers by exploiting some vulnerability or whatever vulnerability that is present in the other computers. So once I get access to all the 10 devices, that becomes a botnet. So using all these 10 computers, I can uh, make a distributed denial of service attack and bring your entire network down. It could completely crash your network so that it becomes unusable, or at least some of the devices goes unusable. So advanced persistent threats. Advanced persistent threats are uh, a minimal attack. It's a series of attacks, but the first attack would be of very minimal in magnitude. There won't be any uh, impact on that. But when the same kind of attack is repeated, repeated again and again, it creates a huge impact. It's like a snowballing attack. It's the objective of that attack will be one, but there will be series of attacks under the executed uh, to accomplish that objective. So that is advanced persistent threats. Okay. So these are the elements of security: confidentiality, integrity, availability, authenticity, and non-repudiation. Confidentiality. Confidentiality means you are saving an information in some website or a database. It should be uh, accessible only for the authorized users. Suppose you uh, create a folder under Google Drive. You put your photos. You go for a picnic. You come back and put your photos, and you share it to the people. So you share it to 4 people. Only these 4 people who has the link should be able to access those photos. You shouldn't be sharing it to the public. So this is confidentiality. Only the people who are authorized should be able to access it. Others should not be able to access it. And integrity. Integrity is modification of any information should be done only by authorized person. for example, you'll save your address and credit card details or debit card details or UPI details in your Flipkart website. So these information only you should be able to change it, yeah, not others, and not even Flipkart should be able to change it. So you make an order today, so next month you come back and make an order to the same address. Say your house number is 101, and the next month you come back, you should be seeing the same house number. It shouldn't be changed. Only you should have the proper permissions to change those details. That is integrity. The information should be as it is in the database without any changes. That's integrity. And availability. Availability is where you have some data uh, posted in your in whatever in your drive or your file sharing website or anywhere. It should be available anytime you want. You could even have your Aadhaar card number or your PAN card details in any in your Dropbox or any other file or mega upload if you are using. When the site goes down, you won't be able to get these information. So these information should be available to you 24/7. Or if there is a downtime, if they are making any changes, they should intimate you the downtime, that the site will be working on this site at these hours between 12 o'clock to 2 o'clock, so you won't be able to get these resources. So the proper intimation should be done, or else the information should be available to you anytime. If it is not available, then that could be, and you're not properly intimated about that non-availability, then that is a security issue. Authenticity or or authentication. It refers to the confirmation of user. So this is something we do it in a regular basis. Every time we go into a website, we'll give the credentials and login. Why do we give those credentials is for the system to identify that you are the proper user for that. Now Google is so advanced that it can detect your mobile OS, can detect your IP address, it can detect your location, Facebook can detect your location. So all these identifications are for a proper authenticity, to make sure, yeah, it is really you, the user whose account you are accessing. That is authenticity. And non-repudiation. Repudiation means proof of authenticity. So say I am sending a mail to my friend, and asking him to delete some of the data in the database. He too does whatever I have said. So I'm asking him to remove these details from the database and clear the database. He does it, and when our manager comes in and asks, why did you remove, when his manager comes and asks, why did you remove this, he'll be telling that I had asked to remove, and he'll be showing that email. So when he shows that email, he should be able to say that it was me who sent the mail. And if I say I did not send that mail, and he says that he received the mail from me, then there is a contradiction. So here people can say anything, but the system should properly able to identify who that sender was. Uh, so that is non-repudiation. It keeps track of the authenticity of who has communicated to whom, or by using a proper encryption or digital signatures for authenticity. So layers of security. Uh, as we previously mentioned, we have 7 layers in our OSI model. So everywhere the concern of security comes. So, and what are all the areas that we need to concentrate in each layer is what we'll be discussing here. In physical layer, it is personnel or hardware programs or hardware devices. In the case physical is there is a server present, a CPU running a database, or there is a file storage server present, or it could be a firewall sitting somewhere and in a in a room, or a CCTV camera monitoring devices in a room. So only people who are authorized, only one person or the administrator only should be allowed to go inside. Or if imagine there is a CCTV setup for a store, and if everyone is allowed to go inside that, anyone could cause damage. It could cause damage, or we could delete any data. So these are the risks involved in that. So that's where a physical security comes in. So when I put a magnetic ID card, so that only if I swipe I could go in, that is a means of physical security. And networks and services. Networks are where we discussed about firewall. Firewall is one and network device that provides network security. And services means inside a system we could prevent running of unwanted services. Suppose I have a database server. It does not need, I won't be using that server for email access. So email service is idle for me. I can disable that email service. Nobody will be able to start the email service on that. If I want to use a server as a domain controller, I can again disable this email services for that. It is unnecessary in that server. And protecting a system means having proper credentials. So if I have one laptop and four people are accessing it, there should be four different user profiles for that. Say my friend should not be able to access my data, and I should not be able to access my friend's data if we both have profiles in the same system. And a third person should not be able to log into our system. That is protecting the system. Application or software. So applications are these are softwares installed in our devices, and if they are not properly configured, anybody outside could see can access the data. For example, in case of you, most of us might be using a Truecaller in your mobile phones. The Truecaller has been identified as a spyware by a lot of in many countries. What are the information stored in Truecaller is uh, it can store our email address, it can store our mobile number, even our short SMS text. It's is getting stored nowadays. So when you don't lock your email address in some contexts is a sensitive information. You don't want someone see who is looking up to your phone number. You should not expose your email address to them. So in that case, you should hide your email address in Truecaller. So these are some of that is one example of how you could uh, secure your application. And the last one is users. Here, humans are considered the weakest link in security chain. Why? Because most of the users even in the corporate world does not have any uh, proper training or awareness about security. Right now what we know is we shouldn't be sharing the passwords. we shouldn't share our, even your blood group is a sensitive information. Any personal information is a sensitive information. Your password, your Aadhaar card number, your PAN card number, your bank account number, transaction password, any it depends on whom you are sharing, when you are sharing. So if you are sharing it in a hospital, sharing your blood group in a hospital or in your workplace, that is different, and it becomes their responsibility to safeguard your information. But when you say your blood group to someone in the hospital, they shouldn't be advertising that same thing to the other, to whoever comes uh, to that hospital. But it could happen. uh, yeah, the people in the hospital could say that what your blood group is, or whatever the health ailments you are having, just like that. So that's why we consider humans as the weakest link in a security chain. It's close to impossible to keep someone to uh, or rely on someone to safeguard a secret or information. So CIA triad is one of the important topics in cybersecurity. Um, CIA stands for confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Uh, these all these three things we have discussed previously in the elements itself. So why it is considered important is this triad will vary according to the uh, use end user, or the client, people who engage this. Take for example, take an e-commerce site like Flipkart. They need their website should be highly available. When it comes to availability, it should be available 24 cross 7 365 days. There shouldn't be no downtime, and they have to follow the confidentiality. They should preserve all their users information, and integrity also should be high. So take for example a simple as any other a simple website of like learning site like Udemy. So when it comes to a learning platform, uh, yes, you won't be saving much information except for your credentials. There won't be information at all. So integrity is not much necessary, but confidentiality of information and available, the website should be up all the time. So confidentiality and availability here uh, comes the primary focus, and integrity is used less. Um, Similarly, for any other social, if you take for any other social media sites, everything will be of high importance, and you could there will be many websites or blogs, any user blogs you take, it's like a movie blog or a magazine websites. They should be available, and there is nothing much confidential. Most are the information are publicly exposed. There is not zero confidentiality, and there is no integrity. We don't save any information or take anything from them, so there is zero integrity in that. So publicly available information are uh, they don't have to focus on confidentiality or integrity. So this is the importance of CIA triad in any industry. It could be it is applicable for all the industries that has the information technology infrastructure, be it automobile industry or a healthcare industry or a payment card industry, and like a banking or non-banking or any other financial services, or e-commerce industry, or anything. Any questions in this, you can post it. We can discuss it at the end of the session. So what are all the laws in case a security breach happens? Financial laws. So you could a company or a person could lose their money. And resource abuse. Resource abuse is take for example a botnet attack. We discussed botnet attack. So botnet attack is a company has a domain and it has 10 servers under it. So these 10 servers will be used for database. Suddenly one hacker was able to access all these devices, and he will be making a cyber attack using that. So abuse is using a resource for something that is not it is intended to. If I have a database, I should be using it to properly save or store information. I shouldn't be exploiting it or use it, recode it, and use it for any other means. This resource abuse happens a lot nowadays in uh, cloud security. So how it happens is cloud. We have a session to discuss on cloud security at the later end, but just keep this in mind. Resource abuse will discuss in detail during cloud security. Resource unavailability. Resource unavailability is when a website goes down. Let's take for example a banking website goes down in the sense it becomes unavailable. So no one will be able to do transactions. So say for example, if bank websites does 1 million rupees of transaction every 3 minutes, if it is down for 3 minutes, then it will lose a transaction of those, and revenue generated through those transaction will also be lost. Identity theft happens mostly in social media, where someone impersonates you, or by stealing your it could be stealing your photos, your names, or even your session IDs. If you are browsing any unauthorized websites and your cookies or session IDs get exposed, using that they could log in as you and impersonate your account. Those things have happened a lot, to be frank, in when we use Facebook Messenger, or when you click the pop-up ads especially. And data loss we discussed earlier. So something stored somewhere is being deleted. uh, these kinds of things happen when mostly by, I mean, a few by set of employees. So suppose when an employee is expelled or terminated from a company, and he knows the security flaws in a system, there were uh, there were cases that he logs into that system again and removes the data, so that nobody is aware of that. And if there are no proper say monitoring or logging tools, nobody in the company will know who came in there and who removed those data. And loss of trust is yeah, no, nobody will be relying on a company that has a history of security breaches, especially when sensitive information are concerned. uh, it'll be hard for the company, even if they spend billions of dollars, they pay compensation, and even if they tighten their security again, it'll be hard to earn their trust even from their own customers. So last topic of the day, will take another 10 minutes. Uh, we started 5 minutes late, so we'll go for another 10 minutes and I'll go. So malware, what is a malware? A malware, it's a malicious software or a program that runs in your device or a website. You would have kind of come if you have used pen drive, you would have known autorun.inf. So that is a malware. So malwares they are threats uh, that could uh, that could be used to get access to an unauthorized device or a website. Suppose there is a laptop. I cannot log into that laptop, but somehow I hacked into it. I will place a malware in that laptop. So this malware will be running. It will open a port. It will open a channel for me to access the victim laptop from my laptop. So that is the purpose of a malware. So these malware, we have three types of classification under malware. Virus, you might have known because you would have used antivirus. Uh, it is a program, and it gets attached to any files or any folders, and it executes whenever you click those files or folders. So for example, when you download a document file from an unknown source, there could be a virus present in it, or and it once you download it and try to open the document won't open. You won't be able to view the contents of that, but it will start unnecessary services in the background. It might open the ports, or it might start the services where the hacker will be able to see it. Well, you won't be able to see anything at all. But that port, depending on that virus, coding of that virus, the hackers might see that a system could come online un- under his surveillance. Uh, if possible, we'll try to see a demo session how the tools will be used to view when a virus has been activated. So virus and worms are a bit different from virus. They won't get attached to the files. They won't be visible for us. They won't even need human interaction. You don't have to double click. You don't have to single click, or you don't have to copy or anything. Nothing can be done, but it could multiply by itself, and it can start executing itself and cause damage to your system. Trojans are uh, you might have heard of that. Uh, they hide themselves in legitimate files or legitimate software. The For example, you search for some random software that is not in your marketplace, or for your, and you want to install something in your mobile. You don't find an APK in Play Store. If you find from unknown sources, there is there is a possibility that the APK file comes with the Trojan. So when you install that one APK file, it will install two applications. The other one uh, is the illegitimate or malicious malware, and the other one is the malicious malware, and the other one is the legitimate software that you wanted to install. So it hides itself, or it embeds itself in any legitimate software, and runs along whenever that legitimate software is being executed. So that is a Trojan. So apart from this, these are other types of malwares. Adware, ad where adwares are pop-ups that I mean they come in the form of advertisements when you browse through any website. You click, you keep on clicking, it will only open the ads and multiple passwords and browser and multiple tabs and windows. So they won't just be opening those windows or tabs. They will, in the background, they might be collecting your cookies, stored cookies, passwords, and session IDs. So do not click any pop-up, even if you think it is a useful pop-up. Do not click any. It could be an adware. And spyware we discussed. Truecaller is one kind of spyware, and there are a lot other spywares. Uh, for Androids that are available in the market, and The same goes for Windows as well as Linux systems. Spyware, they will they won't be detectable at all. They will be installed and they will be monitoring your device 24/7, but you won't be able to see them at all. There most of the antivirus that we used, be it AVG or Kaspersky or whatever you are using, that comes under anti-spyware protection nowadays. So maybe that might help to identify if there are any spywares that is being installed in your systems. Uh, Rootkits are tools created by the attackers when they are, you could say, customized malware created for a specific vulnerability. Say, for example, I find a weakness in your network or in your firewall, but I don't have the proper exploit to take advantage of that firewall and uh, compromise your firewall. I create a rootkit myself and inject it to your device and run it. So that is a customized type of malware that runs on your firewall. Backdoors are common in web applications. Uh, so whenever there is a website, say like an Amazon site, the developers will be changing those look of that site now every now and then. There will be work going on every day to day, making changes in that. Say I have a manager, I am the developer, I make the changes in that website that I wanted to and keep it as it is. So if my manager doesn't have access to that, he won't be able to view the change. For that purpose, we'll be creating a backdoor. So that my manager, whenever he gets his time, using the backdoor, he can log into that site and see or track the changes, whatever I have done. So if this backdoor this backdoor has to be fixed once that website is completely ready. I cannot go make the website public before fixing this backdoor. If I leave it, then it turns out to be a vulnerability and poses a major security risk for me. Uh, this backdoor is mainly present only for web applications and not applicable for your OS or any other uh, uh, entities. Logic bombs are very few right now. They were used earlier. What it does is it gets in executed whenever it meets some conditions. Like it'll be dormant. It will be just laying off in your laptop, but whenever you open a PDF, it might get executed. Or whenever you open a Lightroom kind of software, it might get executed and it might get the details. If you are using any 3D visual, creating any 3D visual models, and there is a logic bomb for that, it might track your database, exclusive database for that, and uh, ex- uh, uh, collect the data for that. Ransomware, you might be knowing it. Knowing it, it creates it encrypts what encrypts the target completely. It could be a laptop, it could be a mobile phone, or it could be an application. Suppose it can encrypt your Google Drive completely and make it inaccessible for that alone. Rest of the things you can use. You can use your Gmail or any other thing, but Google Drive, I can encrypt that alone. Or in case of laptop, I can encrypt your mailbox alone. You have Outlook, I can encrypt that so that whenever you cannot access Outlook, but other things I can do, or I can encrypt an entire thing. So they will ask for uh, they will go through extortion. You will have to pay them for the to get the encrypted password or for them to release. but it doesn't stop with that thing, but your entire sensitive informations will be exposed. So botnets we discussed earlier, it's a network of infected computers uh, used for any automated or synchronized attack. So how to prevent these malwares? We need to install anti-malware. What we install in our laptops or in our mobile phones, it's actually not antivirus, it is anti-malware. It can detect both worms as well as virus. uh, Anti-spyware is a separate feature. So install malware in every device, external internal in the sense if it is facing the internet or if it is if it is inside the internet. For example, in case of a college, it is an internal network. Internet, you may not be able to access Google. So even if it is an intranet, you need to have an antivirus running in it, and you could have a centrally managed server to push the signature updates. Signatures are signatures are programs that are able, I mean codes that can identify the known viruses. If there is a known virus, uh, uh, say for example, okay, yeah, you would say this autorun.inf. Autorun.inf is a known virus, so easily any antivirus could identify. How antivirus identifies is using the signatures. So the signature should be kept up to date, and antivirus should be properly configured. If it is not properly configured, your system performance could increase, and antivirus might get corrupted, and it could corrupt your laptop as well. Do not install programs from unknown sources. Programs in the sense softwares, both for your mobiles and laptops. Do not open unnecessary attachment if you don't know who the sender is. Do not execute the software downloaded from internet. Yes, this is in case of an intranet or any other third party, or if you are even if you are in the browsing center, do not run softwares if it is not authorized by someone. You get the permission of the person who runs that browsing center, and then install those softwares. These are some basic things which could prevent you from installing any malwares in your sites. So I have attached this set of case studies. So these are something how much a company has lost due to a security incident. Um, you could go through that and learn by yourself. It's just self-explanatory. And due to time constraints, I'm closing this. I'm skipping this slide alone. So from in the next class, we'll go through threat environment, hacking terminologies, why hacking is done, what are all the motives for a hacking, and what are all the types of hacking attacks. So that's it for today. If you have, let me go through if there are any FAQs. I see there are no questions for today. Uh, do you have any questions? You can post it. I can wait for another couple of minutes and see. Okay, I think we are 8 minutes past the scheduled time. So you get ready, keep your questions ready. We can meet in the next class and go through that same if you want. Thanks.